Let's Get To presents
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here come the Astros, burning with desire. Here come the Astros, breathing orange fire. Here come the Astros, with winning on their mind. Here come the Astros, number one every time. Go, go, Astros. We want Houston! We want Houston! Alvarez hits a high drive, center field. Beerling's back! This game is turned upside down!
And the pitch is lifted to right by Castellanos. Long run for Tucker over toward the line and foul territory. Makes the catch, and the Houston Astros do it again. 2022 World Series champions.
And now, Go Astros. Astros baseball from three guys who've been there since Art Howe had hair. Good morning, Astros fans. And yes, it's a good morning because we have some of the best people in the world that are also fans of the best team in the world. Andy Tom Cheston, who's looking around. Andy believes this morning, don't you, buddy?
I mean, I have merchandise to say, I believe. But
yeah. And welcome back to Go Astros, where our Go Astros went off and had a winning week. With us, as always, coming to you from the swampy atmosphere of Houston, Texas, just minutes away from Minute Maid Park, our own Andy Tom Cheston. Andy, Guten Morgen.
I mean, it was a 500 week, so it's a non-losing week.
I thought we had a winning week.
Yeah, it went four. They went four, lost three.
Yeah, because we hadn't had a day off in forever. That's how I know it was at least seven games.
I was going since when we last broadcast. Never mind. Yeah.
I assure you, it didn't feel like a winning week.
It was barely a winning week.
Barely. And bringing us the positivity from up in New York, we have Brian Arbor. Brian, how are you?
Hey, we're not Yankees or Mets fans, so I'm the happiest guy on my block.
So yeah, let's, I guess, jump into it. Very weird, very bipolar week for the Astros because they did go 4-3. The losses felt huge. The wins felt huge, which tells me all 7 games were maybe a little overblown in their importance. I'm going to start with one of the losses, and we'll start with Andy. Ryan Presley had a tough day, and there's no other way around it. He had the first 2 outs really quickly and was down to 2 strikes on Miguel Cabrera, and then things went off the rails. Please explain to me why we shouldn't DFA Ryan Presley, and understanding, of course, that I don't think we should DFA Ryan Presley.
Well, I mean, first of all, that was part of the Miguel Cabrera farewell tour, and all teams are required to let him hit. So Ryan Presley was just doing his job as mandated by the MLB. I'm just kidding. MLB doesn't care about your team if you're in Detroit. I have zero issue with Ryan Presley. I have a lot more issue with getting 1 hit against the Tigers pitching staff. You want to blame a loss on somebody? There's a 1 through 9 that I can go through about who did not perform Friday night against the Tigers, because Tigers pitching is not that good. Tigers pitching is not good enough to 1 hit this team, even with our weird struggles against right-handers and our inconsistency and the people in and out of the lineup and the injuries. 1 hit is just ridiculous. So it was almost inevitable. You would have liked to see Presley close out the game, and he should have closed out the game. And I think Ryan Presley would tell you he should have closed out the game. But you can't continue to put that pressure on a bullpen and when your starters are going 5 innings, period, and not expect things to kind of fall apart at the end sometimes. It just did. And if it had happened and we didn't just lose a game 17-1 the night before, maybe it wouldn't feel like that big a deal. If we weren't in a pennant race for the first time in 6 years, maybe it wouldn't have felt like that big a deal. But it felt like everything's going to feel for the next month a lot more augmented and a lot more important than maybe it actually is. Ryan Presley's fine. He'll be fine. Far more concerned about which offense shows up day to day.
Yeah, Brian, what about you?
Yeah, they scored 26 runs in the next 2 days, so have they just distributed those a little better? But that's not how this works, right? I mean, and Friday was a weird game, right? Because the Astros only got 1 hit. Fromber didn't give up a hit, but gave up like a base runner every inning or something like that, right? So
Yeah,
was
like, yeah.
5 walks.
more good than bad, I guess, right? He didn't give up a run. So, right. It's just a weird game, and weird games happen. As Andy says, it's coming after the one thing we learned this week is one of the Astros' weaknesses is that catchers who have to pitch, their catchers who have to pitch was not as good as the Tigers. And so that's a weakness that hopefully we don't get to measure again. Yeah, but I tweeted yesterday. Are we still tweeting? I tweeted yesterday.
Well, I guess we X'd it. You X'd it?
Yeah, what?
I don't know.
Screw
You
Elon. I tweeted yesterday. I'm going to sell the brand that you don't want me to sell here, Elon.
Yeah,
I
right.
tweeted yesterday, right? That yesterday's game in the morning, that yesterday's game felt really important because, hey, if you wanted, you'd have a winning week. You wouldn't lose 3 or 4. You'd get a little further away from Friday's gut punch loss. You had lots of sort of psychological effects of the game. And that seemed to be true when it's 6-0. And it's really true when it's 17-4, where you had this sort of laugher that really, doesn't really, that you had no pressure throughout the game, particularly in the last couple innings. So, overall, the week felt terrible in large part because they lost 3 games in a row, and they lost 2 games in, one of those. Which is the worst way to lose a game? Is it to lose at 17-1 and watch Martin Maldonado pitch, or is it to lose it at 4-1, giving up 4 in the bottom of the 9th?
I'll take 4-1.
Philosophers. I'll ask my colleagues over in the philosophy department to debate that.
Please.
Good answers, right?
Since you brought that up, I guess that means the team's 4-3 since Martin Maldonado held a meeting. I mean,
yes. That's the other thing I should have added. It means whether the meeting paid off or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, 8, that makes them 8-6, so that's good. And then you have you have 8-6. That was good. One of the things that I will tell you is that losing 4-1, when the home run goes over the wall as your plane's taking off and you're losing Wi-Fi, is especially painful to deal with. So there are 30 games left, and I think 30-ish, right?
30 for the Astros.
According to the power rankings guru, the Mariners have the 10th most difficult strength of schedule. The Rangers have the 6th, so it means it doesn't get much better. And the Astros have the 21st. And I think that it bears out where even for the next week, the Astros are going to have a harder strength of schedule of those 3. And then the fortunes really do reverse. This is enough reason for me to be confident in still getting the division. What about you, Brian?
I'm a numbers guy, so I'll go to the numbers here. Fangraphs projects the Astros at 91.2 wins, the Mariners at 90.9, and the Rangers at 89.2. So what more do you need than that? Of course, what that speaks to, right, is that they intrinsically think the Astros are a better team than the other 2 teams, and over a long enough period of time, that should play out. Obviously, strength of schedule is a factor in that, but it's just part of sort of the quality of the team. My broad sort of statement, my general statement is, and I've said this for a while now, to win the division, the Astros need to outplay the Rangers, and now they need to outplay the Mariners over the next X number of games. And that's, in this case, 30 games. It's not a short-term proposition. That's why Friday it was a gut punch, but it's not devastating to their chances.
Sure.
And it's why, if they win tonight by 1 run in the 9th, it's great, but not, they're definitely going to win. They're definitely going to win the division. It's a long-term proposition, and you want to view these things in the long term. Obviously, the difference now is with 30 games left, the long term isn't that long.
Well, and Andy, especially when you look at how things are distributed, it's possible for the Astros to get 2 or 3 games behind in this immediate stretch, because the Astros strength of schedule at the beginning of this stretch is much more difficult, but still not reason to lose hope or faith or whatever it is, even if this first week doesn't look as positive for the Astros as I think the rest of the 30 games will.
Well, I mean, I think the Astros fans are going to have to get used to this level of tension for the next 30 days. It doesn't help that the Mariners get to play the A's for the next 3 games, and the A's have pretty much thrown up every white flag you can throw up. I don't even know if the drum guys are coming anymore, but doesn't matter. The games are in Seattle. Whereas, the Astros get to play the Red Sox, who are still holding on to hope that there is a playoff berth for them. Rangers get to play the Mets. Rangers are playing on the road, which, there's a lot of different stories here. I think the biggest one for me is that the Rangers still have 14 road games to go after we get out of this week, and they're not good on the road. We just saw them lose 3-4 to the Twins over the weekend. Appreciate the Twins, Carlos Correa helping us out as much as he could. Really more Royce helping us out than Carlos, but Carlos was on base a lot.
My fantasy team appreciated that as well.
But you jump out of this week, and I fully expect the Mariners to put up another game. The problem the Astros are facing, if you're worried about the division, is that the Mariners hold the tiebreaker, and in MLB's infinite wisdom, there is no game 163 anymore. So that 1-game lead is really a 2-game lead for the Mariners if they end up, in the lead of the division. The good news is you still have 3 against them the last week of the season. And before that and after that, the Rangers and the Mariners play each other 7 times. So there's a whole lot of beating up on each other that's going to happen at the end of this month. And the Astros sneak in with, close out the season with the D-backs. Maybe that's an advantage at this point because maybe Arizona's out of it. But I think the schedule sets up favorably for Houston. I think it sets up really favorably for Seattle. So I think it's neck and neck. I think the Rangers are going to have some reality facing them fairly soon. And even saying that, it's a 3-way race right now. So there's going to be a lot of tension, a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of overreactions no matter what happens on the field on a day-to-day, game-to-game, even pitch-to-pitch basis if you follow some people on Twitter.
Yeah, and I mean, look, and I get what you're saying about it being favorable for the Mariners in the sort of long term, but they still have to play the Rays 4 times. They still have to play the Dodgers. So, they definitely still have some. I believe they still play the Dodgers anyway. There's definitely some other really good teams that they're playing, including a very good Reds team right now, right? That's playing much better than I think their record indicates. So I think there's still a lot of, like you said, a lot more baseball left to go. Now, one of the things that a lot of fans are excited about, I'm cautiously optimistic about, is that Brantley should be in the lineup starting Tuesday. Andy, it's like, is it a unicorn? Is it Michael Brantley? I don't know. What can we reasonably expect, though, from Michael Brantley after, first of all, being gone for so long, but also, despite what he's been hitting in his rehab assignment, something about him is not really fired up for the Astros medical staff or Dusty Baker to bring him back yet. There's been a couple of times where they've checked in and they sent him right back down to Sugar Land. So what can we really expect?
I mean, the way I read the last hiccup, because he was supposed to be activated before this road trip, was him saying that he wasn't ready, not the team saying he wasn't ready, which is a little bit different. Which is why I assume he's going to be activated potentially tomorrow instead of today because he flew yesterday. So I don't know if it's just that many days rest since the last play. He's not going to be an everyday player. I think everybody needs to kind of adjust their expectations. He won't be the player he was prior to June of last year from a usage standpoint, at least not immediately. And I really would have trouble imagining for the rest of the season that he's going to be an everyday player. At the worst, what he does is provide you an experienced left-handed bat off the bench. That's the worst case scenario, I think. And he improves our bench because our bench has been one of the big weak areas this year.
Definitely.
He provides veteran leadership. I think it's different to be a leader when you're actually on the active roster versus some guy who might as well be a player's dad for the last year. Just hanging out.
A player's uncle.
Yeah, right. So I'm excited that he's coming back. I hope that it's a good story for the Astros. The Astros have not had many good stories this year, but I think the reality is that he's going to start 2 or 3 games out of every 7. Other than that, he makes Dusty smarter because he's a better choice off the bench than some of the other guys he's had to choose from this year. So it's a positive. It'll be very interesting to see how the rotation of, because it's all intertwined now, Michael Brantley, Yordan Alvarez, Yainer Diaz, Jose Abreu, John Singleton, and Martin Maldonado to an extent all play what the interplay is on roster usage there, because Yainer needs to get more at bats. I think everybody agrees that Yainer.
I think
needs
now
to get
even
more
Dusty
at-bats.
agrees he needs to get more at bats. Yeah, he
But
said
if-
that he said the city of Houston will thank us for how he's used them.
Next year, maybe later in his career. It wasn't a this year, thank you. That's not how I read that quote.
Right.
But I think that's the issue. It's an improvement for the Astros. How much of an improvement remains to be seen. It will really come down to, and I hate to say this because I know that some of the people listening are going to cringe, how Dusty uses him.
Well, Brian, is, obviously I want your take on Brantley, but is there a reason to say bring him up and activate him on Friday, where now it's September 1st and you do have a roster expansion, and that way you're not forced to make a decision yet? Or does it matter? And what do you expect for us to see out of Brantley?
If Brantley is one of your 26 best players, then it doesn't make sense to delay it till Friday. Obviously, he's needed a rehab assignment because he's going through spring training, right? He's trying to get his timing back. Like I've seen sort of people saying.
So this is more of a
rehab assignment, and I'm like, no, he actually gets like regular at bats in a way that he can't if he's on the major league roster. If you're just bringing him up as a pinch hitter every once in a while or playing him every other day, he gets to sort of schedule how he preps for that. So I've been okay with that.
So you're saying basically that really it's not that the injury isn't getting better, it's just that he's really still working on stuff in Sugar Land, and that's why he wanted to stay down.
Yeah, I mean, part of it's the injury, right? Because he did the rehab assignment before, back earlier in the season, and we were all like, okay, we're going to get Brantley back, and then no, we didn't get Brantley. And so, what to expect from Brantley, I don't know, because I don't know what he has left. I assume he will look really good at the plate. He'll do the thing where he pumps the bat against his shoulder, and he will take
quiet bat.
I assume his brain is still there, and he will take good swings and give professional at bat. Whether he can connect the ball and do anything with it is to be seen. His numbers in AAA are encouraging on that, but on the other hand, can he keep doing it over? Well, they're down to 2 months now, but still, can he do that on a regular basis? Andy's right. He's going to I assume he's going to get a lot of rest. It's part of this, that he's going to be someone who doesn't play every day, because I don't think his shoulder can do that at this point. But again, my doctorate's not medicine. That's a guess, but I think that's an educated guess.
And the other interesting thing will be, and maybe not interesting to anybody else, but what the corresponding roster move is going to be, because it doesn't necessitate somebody coming off the 40-man roster.
Well, that's what I wanted to get to next, because one of our co-members of the Twitchy Dolphin Media Let's Get to Sports Network, Scott McIntyre, joked that John Singleton's walk-up song should be Taps at this point. But he can't go down, so he's going to either be DFA'd. So what is the roster move? Brian, we'll start with you. Is it sending Julks back down, or who comes off the 40-man? Is it Singleton?
Yeah, my guess would be Julks. The one sort of drawback and thing they will have to think through in the front office is whoever they send down, they can't bring up for another 10 days. So they can't send him down and bring him up immediately on September 1st. So they need to sort of think about that in the roster. I'm sure they will bring up a pitcher on September 1st as well, because they can get to 14 pitchers, but they'll need to bring up a position player as well. Singleton's been fine. And people sort of look at his batting average being really low, but he does a really nice job of getting on base and taking walks and taking good at-bats. He had the one big game, but it hasn't had sort of big power since, but has been coming around a little offensively. So I'm sort of skeptical. The issue, right, with bringing Singleton, with keeping Singleton on the roster with Brantley, particularly for the next couple of days, is that's two really defensively limited players. The good news is Mauricio Dubon can play 6 different positions. So
not well. Not well.
I mean, I don't want to see him start at third base after watching him there for an inning yesterday. It was his first appearance of the Astros at third base, but You know, he can do a better
Yeah.
job standing there with the glove than say, I can. So, you know,
Sure. Is that the baseline?
so
Is,
well,
is that,
the
is that
baseline
the
this.
wins above Brian
Bregman
scale?
doesn't want it. The reason he hasn't played a third is that Bregman never wants a day off. And that's fine. Like Bregman can do that right now. So, you know, I'm glad they gave Bregman a couple innings off yesterday. And if that means we have to watch Mauricio Dubon commit an error over there, I can live with that. You know, they can get David Hensley or Greg Kessinger up as soon as they need it.
Yeah, they were just trying to get Cabrera up to bat one more time. That was all part of the plan.
Yeah, all part of the plan. So you're saying that Mauricio Dubon has 162 wins above Brian? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
If Brian's the baseline, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, absolutely. 162 may seem low. I think it's,
You think so? Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that did break, we can talk about wins above Brian again. Noah Syndergaard got DFA'd by whoever he was with last. Cleveland.
Well, hold on. It was Thor with the Guardians. It was supposed to be the greatest crossover in history. Or at least that's how I described it to my 10-year-old who's much more a Marvel fan than a baseball fan.
So I was going to say, yeah, like we were joking before the show, he was a little more Thor Love and Thunder, a little less Thor Ragnarok. But the question came up from one of the NBC reporters in Houston is there anything that the Astros can use that's left? And there's a part of me, and Andy knows this, I've kind of been intrigued by Thor forever. I know he doesn't have his fastball left, but is there enough left that's better than what we have in the bullpen now that might be worth the Astros taking a flyer on him? Andy, we'll start with you.
My short answer is no. My long answer is no, because Syndergaard does not have a fastball anymore. And more concerning to me is that he has developed a little bit of a reputation around the league of being uncoachable. So if you are hoping that the Astros would be able to throw their pitching magic on him like they have done with so many other kind of reclamation projects over the last several years, he's not a guy who has a history of listening. He's very much in the Verlander mode, and not even the Justin Verlander mode that we know, the one that evidently came from the Mets of I don't want to listen to you. I'm going to do my thing. I don't buy your vibe. And this hasn't been just with one team. It wasn't just with the Mets. It was with the Angels. It was with the Guardians. DFAing a pitcher at this point of the year there's not a great reason to do it unless they're pushing the issue. I just can't see bringing somebody who is uncoachable, potentially a cancer, to a team that has tenuous chemistry, I think at best right now, on the hopes that he might be better than Phil Maton. Because that's really where you're looking. Yeah. I just, with no fastball.
There are 4 teams in baseball, 4 organizations that have reputations for being pitching savants, for being able to take people and making them better pitchers. Syndergaard has pitched for 2 of them this year, the Dodgers and the Guardians.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it. So, you know, look, if they sign him in the offseason and give him a minor league contract and an invitation to spring training, yeah, sure. You know, it could be worth a shot. Maybe he'll get desperate and start listening. You know, I wouldn't object to that. Can they get anything out of him for the last month? I'm with Andy. I don't think that's the case at all. And sort of worth noting with the bullpen here, the thing they could really use, right, is a guy to go multiple innings.
Sure, yeah.
Which he can obviously do since he's been a starter, but does he want to make that transition today? Again, his stubbornness makes sense. I think he's likely to sign with a team that gets really desperate for pitching and just, you know, please go out there every 6th day and, you know, eat some innings.
It's also August 28th. He may just take the rest of the year off. I mean,
that's the benefit of those guaranteed contracts in baseball. He doesn't have to do anything. You know? Yeah. Again, something that I was just curious about because I didn't know like whether the other pitches in his arsenal were worth it. I know he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would rather see Spencer. If you're making a move to make a move, I'd rather see Spencer Arrighetti get a call up because he can pitch multiple innings. He does have the benefit of nobody in the major leagues having a book on him, and he is presumably coachable because he's still in that coachable mode. Syndergaard to me is what I unfortunately do in fantasy football is chase a guy who was really good 3 years ago because his name is familiar. It never works out.
And look, at this is a similar thing, and something to think about sort of in general is oftentimes we've heard of this guy, we know he was good. Advice for fantasy football drafting as well. But in a similar story, I tweeted about this yesterday as well. The Rockies released Jurickson Profar, and there were a number, including people who were nice enough to admit it in my in replies, who were like, "Hey, the Astros should really go get Jurickson Profar as a utility infielder. He can play some of the outfield," and he ended up with a 72 WRC plus, just because a guy was good at one point, or you've heard of him. The question, and again, how to do this is really difficult, right? But, how to do this, is who's going to be good moving forward. And again, Mauricio Dubon isn't a great hitter, but he's been an effective hitter this year. He's been a really good defender, particularly at second base, and has been the utility infielder the Astros have really benefited from. So I'm glad they ended up with Dubon over Profar. Or I will note that I didn't want them to get Profar because I thought David Hensley could be the utility infielder this year. So again, you don't have to take my word on everything.
Andy, do you want to follow up on the Profar thing and all that?
Not necessarily Profar, but I think Hensley's an interesting comparison when it comes to somebody like John Singleton. We all liked David Hensley at the end of last year, not because he was doing anything all that great other than taking walks. One of the things Singleton does really, really well is take walks, but he's not hitting for power, so he's a disappointment to some subset of the Astros fans. At some point, a guy who can have a competent major league at bat is an important component on your bench. I think Singleton stays up, A, because Abreu's back is iffy, B, because he does give competent at bats. Profar hasn't really been that guy for a couple of years now, but to Brian's point, he's a name you recognize, and he was on the Padres last year, or at least within the last couple of years, and they seem to win games except when they don't, which, so why not take a flyer? It is very much a FOMO thing that I think a lot of baseball fans get, it's settled into of, well, whoever's on somebody else's roster, even if they've just been designated for assignment, which is the worst thing you can do to a player,
right,
is better than what we have.
Well, as we go into these last 30 games, the starting pitching, what's your concern level? Because the results for the most part have been there, but they've been ugly. Even Fromber's start where he didn't give up any hits, Brian, like you mentioned earlier, he still walked 5 guys. There's a reason why he wasn't able to continue driving for that no-hitter into the 8th and 9th inning. Even JV yesterday walked guys.
Hit 3 guys.
He hit 3 guys. I think tonight's going to be a big start for Javier because he seemed like he has looked like he's coming out of it. So where is your concern level, Brian, starting with you on the starting rotation for these last 30 games?
My rational part of me, my mind, my numbers, Mark says these people have mostly been effective pitchers throughout their career, so they probably should be effective. And my emotional, we're a game behind with 30 games to go in this season, is a complete and total nervous wreck. And I'm trying to have the mind get over the emotions here. Work sometimes, not others.
Andy, how about you?
I'm not worried about JP France. I think you can look at his body of work and see that the game against the Red Sox was an anomaly. So far this year, I don't anticipate that he's going to give up 10 runs in his next start. So that'll be an improvement. Verlander doesn't bother me because Verlander is going to do Verlander things, whether that's in 5 innings or 7 innings. He is going to give you a chance to win every time out. Outside of that, it gets really dicey because I don't know the things we were counting on at the beginning of the year, Fromber being a Cy Young contender, Christian Javier taking the next step and being a guy who could give you 6 or 7 competent innings, Hunter Brown building on his rookie season, and Hunter Brown hasn't been bad, but I'm lumping him in there anyway. They've just been very inconsistent for, I think, a variety of reasons. Some of that could just be having pitched more than any other pitchers have pitched over the last several years. It's just kind of a crapshoot outside of 2 starters. And it's been you could change those 2 starters different points of this year, but that's been kind of our story all year, is that you've got two guys you can count on and 3 or 4 guys that you're just hoping things go right. I think history says that most of the starts go right, and we've got 5 to 6 competent starters, but right now they're in the middle of it. And I'm encouraged that Fromber didn't give up hits. He walked some guys. More importantly, he was getting ground balls, which he hasn't been getting in the last several starts. I'm encouraged that Verlander looks better than he looked as a Met, as part of the Astros. Javier is still a mystery to me. Hunter Brown looks good or bad, but he's a rookie, so that's what kind of you expect. So it's very concerning. You don't know what you're going to get, and I think that weighs heavily mentally on a baseball team when you don't know what you're going to get day to day from your starting pitching.
Could be the Rangers. I guess that's it. I mean, that collapse has been funny.
Enjoyable.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It's that word.
Yeah. Funny, enjoyable. Couldn't happen to a nicer group of people, nicer group of fans. I've not seen that Valley Sports West Twitter account was pretty salty and saucy in June. They're not so salty and saucy anymore. And I don't know that they recover from it. I think that they are dropping these games because they are actual real flaws with their roster. And between injuries and they counted on Will Smith that was pitching way above his skis, who's no longer doing that. I think what we're seeing is what we're going to get. I think it's going to come down to Astros and M's, and hopefully that last series won't matter, but we probably need at least win one of those. But that does wrap up Go Astros for this week. I'm James Christopher, and all I got to say is a win's a win. Go Astros.
I'm posting later today on my Substack an article on Jose Altuve's chances to get to 3,000 hits. Take a look at it. Go Astros.
If we only give up 16 runs against the Red Sox, that is progress. Go Astros.